Hey guys, this is a quick video about the snowplow setup on my Honda Rubicon 520. This is a 2022 model Rubicon. It's about a year old now, and when I was looking to put a snowplow on it, a lot of the companies that I was looking into didn't have their information updated, so it wasn't really clear whether their systems would match with the machine, specifically the mountain bracket, because the mountain bracket's unique to each ATV brand, and they didn't have the model year updated, so I wasn't quite sure that it would work out. In the end, it did. So this video is just to provide some insight to others who might be looking to do the same and are not sure whether the system will work out for them. So with regard to the plow and its system, there are three main components and options for those components. That is the plow blade itself. I went with a 52-inch steel plow blade. I went with the brand KFI, and they have options for different length plows as well as different materials. You can get a steel plow, or you can go with the poly plows. The poly plow blades are lighter and will put less strain on the ATV and its front suspension, but I wanted to go with the steel plow because I also use this. As you can see here, it's summertime, and I do use it to do some light grading or back dragging on my bluestone driveway, and help smooth it out. So I use it for a couple different purposes. It's excellent also in the snow. I just used it this past winter, and it worked no problem. So the main components, as I mentioned, are the plow blade. I went with the steel plow blade. You have the push tube that mounts to the plow blade, and then you have the mountain bracket, which secures it to the frame of the machine. That's right down under here, and you can see the push tube is pinned up to the mounting plate, which was mounted to the frame of the machine. And the mounting bracket on this was one of the more challenging items to mount. Main reason for that is because the 2022 Honda Rubicon has a full skid plate, and the tubular frame is hidden by the skid plate, so it's not really clear, or it doesn't give you good visibility to where to mount the U-bolts that hold the mounting bracket to the frame of the machine. This video is kind of in reverse order since I've already mounted the components. I'll do a separate video as I take this kit off to show how it's secured and where it's secured on the frame of the product, and highlight some of the challenges I had with that mounting. This is really just an overview of what you might need, and to show that there is something out there and that does work, and but what you might expect when you assemble it. So along with the plow system, which was again the mounting bracket, the push tube, and the plow blade, I did order this accessory right here, which is the top skirt for the plow blade. And this helps, especially in light fine snow or dust snow. It keeps it from blowing up at you when you're operating the machine, as well as caking into your lights and your radiator when you're using the plow. So the second accessory I ordered was this is a Super ATV brand strap and pulley kit. This did not come with the plow system, and I did this because the angle of the cable as it comes out of the fair lead on the winch is pretty steep, and this pulley system helps lighten the load and put less strain on that cable. I went with a Warn winch, a VR25 winch, to work with the system, and I chose the synthetic cable option for the winch as opposed to the steel cable. You can get it either way, but I found with the snowplow, because of the number of cycles that you use it with plowing during the wintertime, the synthetic cable lasts longer. The steel cable tends to wear due to the friction, even with a roller fair lead, because I had a Yamaha Kodiak ATV previously with a Warn winch, roller fair lead, and a steel cable, and that steel cable after relatively short use would part due to the friction and the angle that you had coming out of the fair lead. I switched over to a Kevlar cable on that machine, or the synthetic cable, and was much happier. It lasted much longer, and then in addition, if it did part, much easier to just literally tie it, cut it, tie it, and get back into business, compared to having to crimp on a new eyelet onto a steel cable. So synthetic cable I would highly recommend if you're going to use your system to plow, and as well as in this setup here with the KFI plow push tube and mount system on a Honda Rubicon. The other thing I found is that the angle of the cable as it comes out of the fair lead to the push tube mount was very steep. KFI supplies instructions to mount the eyelet for the cable right here on the front face of this mounting plate. It gives multiple options, but this is where they default to for the first option. And as you can see, that would be a very steep angle for the cable as it comes out of the fair lead. And I thought that would create more or excessive wear on the cable. So I opted for mount position 3, which this pulley system is hooked into now. This mounts the eyelet forward. You will need to get different hardware, which are basically longer bolts to mount through the plate on the push tube, but it's pretty simple to do, and it creates a little bit of a gentler angle for that synthetic cable as it comes out of the fair lead. As I mentioned, I also went with this strap and pulley kit, which, as stated, helps reduce the load on the winch and the strain on it. So I used it this whole winter, and then a little bit here in the summer for grading, and it worked perfectly. No signs of wear in the cable. I waxed the cable up a little bit too, just to help. And I didn't go with the roller fair lead when I mounted the Warn winch. I just kept the standard fair lead that came with it. It seems really smooth, and you can, again, I wax it up, and it tends to glide no problem, and I haven't seen any adverse wear on the cable to this point. So I'll give an update if that changes, but so far quite happy with the way that's working. The other area is the Warn winch itself. As I mentioned, I went with the VR25, and the one area that was a bit of a challenge outside the mounting plate for the plow kit was mounting the winch itself to this Honda. Honda leaves very little room to fit this winch in there, and I've seen online some guys went with bigger winch systems for these machines, and I can only imagine that it would be even more of a challenge or more difficult because of the little room that you have there to secure it. So in order to mount this winch, I needed to get a winch mounting kit, which is basically a bracket or plate. I went with the KFI brand there as well, and that bolts to the frame of the Honda, and you then have to secure the grill guard here on the machine back in place, because you swing that out during installation. And when I do the disassembly review, I'll go into that in a little more detail. But it's a very tight space, and I would think that Honda, with these utility machines, what I would recommend for them to do is put a little more space in there, because it's very tight, and that was one of the more challenging areas, is with getting everything back in place and lined all up, the brush guard, as well as the skid plate once the winch is installed, because it's very tight, almost no clearance whatsoever. As you can see, that skid plate, which is one piece, you can see it comes up in the front here and partially obscures. Here's the end of the winch where you can switch it from free spool to engaged, and I left that in place stock as it came. But on the other side, where the motor head is here, there was interference, so I had to trim this area of the skid plate in order to accommodate the head of the winch. So as I said, it's a pretty tight setup, and they could do better to give you another inch or two, maybe not rake the front of the machine so greatly, and give you more space to mount a winch. Or even better yet, have a mount system already built in, so that whatever winch you go to, it's already available, and you can mount it up to the machine no problem. With this particular KFI mounting system, you have to turn the winch basically upside down. The bracket's installed, and the winch is actually installed upside down and it's set up on this machine, which is per the instructions the way you have to do it. And so that's something you should be aware of as well. So this free spool, for example, you'll see is typically on the right side, but it's on the left side here because of the, well, left side as we're looking at it here, because that's the way the bracket mounts. That's the way you have to mount it with the KFI system. So just to be aware. Yeah, so overall, like I said, I'm happy with the machine. I'll do another walk around kind of year review of the machine itself, as well as a second video as I take this plow kit and the mounting bracket off the machine to show you exactly where the U-bolts for the mounting bracket are secured to the frame, because that's a little bit of a challenge, and also give some insight into where I located some of the winch mounting components, such as the contactor, and how I routed the wiring on this particular machine. Well, that's it. I hope you found this information somewhat helpful. And if you have any questions, just put them in the comments and I'll do my best to answer. Thank you. Take care.